Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 5th of February, and joining me on this edition, Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
People are morons.
And Audio Reviewer Ed Selley.
You want to throw up here or do you want to throw up in the car?
Welcome to Groundhog Day. Welcome to Groundhog Day. Welcome to Groundhog Day. You get the joke. It is Groundhog Day today as we are recording this podcast. On Monday it won't be Groundhog Day. Some of us may be trapped and never see the weekend, Ed. What would your Groundhog Day be?
Well, if this is my Groundhog Day, unfortunately, it starts at 3:58 a.m. as I have to return my son to his own bed, give him a drink, then take him for a wee, then take him back to his bed, and then finally return to my own bed. But I don't know, it could be worse. I mean, obviously, I would be condemned to speak to you gentlemen for the rest of eternity.
Exactly.
And that's a major
although, to be
flaw
honest,
in this being Groundhog Day.
In light of there being no further consequences, I'd probably start knocking that on the head after like the third or fourth run through.
Well,
Very quickly.
yeah.
I don't know. You see, it's not all bad because I mean, I'm self-employed. I'm a limited company, so we're heading towards the end of the financial year. So I've got quite a lot of ready capital in my corporate account, which is earmarked for tax purposes. But if I'm not going to be paying tax for a bit of time, then yeah, let's see what we can do with that. Or you know, I've got access to a passably interesting car, do something really stupid with that. The possibilities of doing some stupid things for at least a couple of decades are pretty good, to be honest. So, you know, there's that. But I mean, you know, what was it they were saying that people have analysed it in terms of his ability to learn the ice sculpturing and the piano, and he's in there for 16,000 years.
That's a lot of "I got you, babe," isn't it?
That is, isn't it?
So, your Groundhog Day, Steve?
If it was today, aside from the problem of having to do this podcast for all eternity, you're right, Ed, I would probably knock it on the head pretty quickly. I don't think, for personal reasons, this is a day I'd want to repeat very often. So, yeah, I do like Ed. I would just basically just go nuts and
Are your piles giving you chips, Steve?
Yeah. That's nothing to laugh about, you know. It can be very uncomfortable.
No, I'm not
Farmer Giles. Particularly when you spend a lot of time sat on your ass.
You just eat 3,000 cheesecake flavoured yogurts as best as we can work out, Phil.
Last year, I attempted to do it all on my own. That was start a new lifestyle, lose some weight, do lots of walking, and I'd succeeded to a certain extent. And then, you know, the bad weather came along, comfort food started, and I put some weight back on. So we've got January out of the way, which was a hell of a month for all of us. The festivities are out of the way, so I've decided I was going to start again, change my lifestyle, change what I'm eating and so on, and I decided the best way to do that is to go and sit with a group of women on a Wednesday night talking about food. And yeah,
are you the only bloke in this?
No. There are other blokes there. You've got it in your head that you think you know what it's going to be like, and it's nothing like that. It was actually really quite a nice experience, and they were all really nice people, and it was none of this, you know, Susie lost 6 pounds today, and you know, isn't she looking well type of, it was none of that type of thing that you think it's going to be.
It's not run by Marjorie Dawes.
No. No. It was all right. It wasn't too bad, and it was Slimming World that we're at, so you know, people had brought food in to try out and stuff. So
people brought food in.
Yeah,
seems counterproductive.
Well, no, this is the point. It's not about dieting as such. It's about losing weight, but doing it by changing your lifestyle and learning to cook and learning new recipes. And
well, this is the thing, because unless you make unless the changes are something that you can actually stick, it makes no odds.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it's possible for pretty much anyone to crash diet a quantity of weight off, but if they then go, oh well, I finished losing weight, and then revert back to the you know, the Morgan Spurlock diet, it's not going to make any difference, is it? So
exactly, it's all about changing and learning how to cook different things and add other things into your diet and so on. So yeah, it's really interesting at the minute. I could have gone on these powdered shake diets, or you know, the similar things where they prepare the meals for you and you pay an absolute fortune every week for them. But like you said, you don't change your lifestyle that way. You don't change your habits. You get the weight off, and then you more or less go back to what you were doing. So we'll see how we go. But it was the first time I've ever sat in a room like that.
In a circle?
Yes.
What's the first rule of Cake Club then, Phil?
First rule of Cake Club is you don't discuss Cake Club.
And the second rule is no smoking.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. I'll tell you what though, you can actually have cake on this. You know, it's not one of these things where everything's forbidden and you have to really low calorie and all the rest of it. That is part of it. But part of it is learning how to just like having a fry up. You can have a fry up on this diet. You just do things differently. So you use a 1 calorie spray oil if you're going to have your fried eggs, if you're going to have bacon, you cut all the fat off.
I'm sorry, the 1 calorie sprays are a lie. If you just go, ooh, let's put 1 calories worth of spray in and then attempt to fry it, you will have to.
It's normally about 10
with a welder.
Yeah, it's normally about 10 sprays. It depends on your pan as well. But you see, it's like learning these things. So you can still have that as long as you have mushrooms and tomatoes and stuff, which is classed as your speed foods.
That might be a bit tricky for you. You don't like tomatoes, do you?
I like cooked tomatoes.
Oh. Okay.
So
just not raw tomatoes.
I don't like, for some strange reason, I don't like raw tomatoes. So.
I don't like most raw tomatoes. The ones grown in the sheds in Holland that taste of very little, do nothing for me.
Yeah, they aren't very nice.
But you see, I can have all my favourites. I can have my chili con carnes and my bolognese and all the rest of it. It's just about, the meat that you use should be really lean, so 5% fat or less, and then you make it from scratch, so you're not using jars that are full of sugar and full of fat and all the rest of it. So it's just about going back to basics basically, and adding lots of things in that you normally wouldn't add in, like spinach and that kind of thing, which are again classed as speed foods, which would help you with your weight loss. So fingers crossed. I am starting. Will we do the weigh-in every week?
Yeah, go on then. How much did you start at?
14 stone 5 pounds, and my target that I have set myself, I haven't put any time on this, but my target weight, should I eventually get to it, is 11 stone 7 pounds. So 11.5 stone.
Okay, well, you will eventually reach that, even if you just die.
Have you ever considered a career in motivational speaking?
Right, okay, let's move on. Competitions. What can we win, Ed?
Hang on, let's bring that up. Right, okay. You can win... How prescient. You can win for Groundhog Day on 4K Blu-ray, and that closes on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. So, it's how romantic is that?
It's a romantic comedy, so that does seem appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this a reoccurring competition?
Yeah.
I don't know how many copies have they got.
The rest of the year.
And previous competition winners, Ed?
There is one. Duff Beer Drinker won Batman, Gotham by Gaslight on DVD, which is retrotastic. So well done him.
Excellent. Well done. Winning that, Retrotastic on DVD. Speaking of Duff beer drinkers and Ed's continual drinking of beer, and in particular craft beers that we've been talking about for ages on the podcast, it's led to an important moment in AVForums podcast history. Every listener and reader of AVForums can get a case of free craft beer. We've secured an amazing offer with our friends at beer52.com, the Craft Beer Discovery Club. You can get a case of 8 craft beers for free, and all you do is you just pay for the delivery in their free trial. So, that was the sound of Ed hitting the floor.
I thought you just keeled over for a second.
I had to add the sound effect in there just to, because I didn't want Ed to actually fall on the floor, because he's like, he'd probably break his leg against something.
That wouldn't be good at all.
No, it wouldn't be good at all. So that's right, you'll receive 8 incredible craft beers, a copy of Ferment magazine, and a snack, and all you pay is £5.95 delivery for your first box. If this club is not for you, you can actually stop your deliveries at any time, there's no catch. And I think you're saving about £24. I think it's £24 a month for membership. So that's quite a deal, actually. If you sign up for 1 month, you get your 8 craft beers, your magazine, and your snack, and all you pay is $5.95 delivery. Visit beer52.com/AVF and claim your free case. Basically, Beer 52, Ed, it's a beer club. They deliver 8 craft beers every month, along with a Ferment magazine and a tasty snack. And you can compare and contrast the 8 beers with the help of the tasting guide, which is in the magazine. And if you don't like dark beers, then you can tailor the box to your preferences as well. And you can also rate and review, which I know you'd really like, Ed, all the beers that you've collected on their website, and you gain points when you do that. And then you can what do points make? More craft beer.
Probably. Yeah.
More craft beer, yeah. So the full terms and conditions are at beer52.com/terms. And don't forget, go and visit beer52.com/AVF. Go and claim your free case today, and all you pay is $5.95 in deliveries. So, Ed, you going to be joining the club?
It's possibly worth a look. I have to say, this is inspired joined up thinking on the part of Beer 52, because let's face it, there are some members of our vast forums who are extremely healthy, active, dare I say it, almost puritanical souls. But there are quite a lot more of us that aren't. So I can see some mileage in this. This is probably quite a good idea. I'm all for things like this. I mean, even I live in a big place with lots and lots of choices to buy things like this. But even so, you'll still run through most of the available options in a relatively short space of time. So something which allows you to cast the net a bit further, I'm all for that. Obviously I'm not swaying from my continued consumption of alcohol-free beer in the week, which has now pretty much become a regular part of my existence. But it means that my weekends could just be that bit more beery. And I quite like the idea of that.
You're a bit of a craft beer snob as well, Steve?
I'm not. I've got to be honest. I'm not a massive beer fan. More of it. I might be more interested in the sort of the pale ales, lagery end of the spectrum than I am the bitter end of the spectrum. It's never been my cup of tea.
I don't know. I think you're quite bitter.
I quite like the idea of very bitter. I quite like the idea of trying new things though, and sort of marking and scoring them, and also if it's free, then definitely. So yeah, I'll investigate. I think I will have a look.
Just your first month it's free, but
yeah, I appreciate the first month, but still.
Okay. So if any of our listeners or any of the team want to try it out, it's beer52.com/AVF. Free case of beer. All you do is you pay $5.95 and you also get a magazine and a snack. It doesn't say what the snack is. Be interesting to find out what it is.
Well, in many ways, that's the most intriguing. I don't want any details about the snack. I just
surprise.
Although can I just in plug terms, there is no. I'm sure they've got talented people on this, good men like Indiana Jones, but there is nothing, and I'm going to state this publicly, that will come close to the Co-op own posh salt and vinegar crisps. They're just unbelievable. I think they're dusted with crack. I may have said this at some point before because they are unbelievably Moorish, but that's the single greatest beer accompaniment that there has ever been and probably will ever be. This is the culmination of mankind's technological achievement.
Ed, thank you very much for that.
Done a fair bit of research, haven't you, Ed?
Yes, I've eaten many crisps, but honestly, they're amazing. Just ridiculously good.
I've got to say, you were looking lean when you were at CES, so hopefully you're going to keep that up, Ed.
I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, essentially, I haven't formally gone off to Fat Club, but exactly the same things as you were saying. It's
cake club, not fat.
Yeah, I didn't want to say Fat Club, because that sounds a bit.
Cake club. It's modifying behaviour. Now, my bulk of unnecessary calorie intake was beer. So the alcohol-free beers, they're smaller. They're about 60 calories a can. Consume 2 or 3 of those an evening. Part of my brain is still, if you like, convinced I'm having my evening drink, but without the sort of bleary-eyed confusion the following morning and the vast unrestrained calorie intake. So that's the major difference, and then a couple of minor alterations to my diet. But I mean, I'm relatively lucky in this because I have no sweet tooth. If there is a chocolate, as in a square of it, occasionally I'll eat a very small, but it's not something I'd actively seek out or buy. So provided that that doesn't change, I have an easier time of it than I think a lot of people do in terms of just being able to shed a bit of weight. That and the fact I'm still trying to walk around at least once a day to try and get this bloody ankle back up and running.
Yeah, so, and obviously it comes down to portion sizes as well, Ed. Not like the bolognese that we had in CS, where you ate a full plate full and then finished the pan off as well.
Man versus food. I think this is a problem actually, because in many ways, even though I'm married, I'm much more like a single person because my wife is vegetarian. I generally will modify what I've cooked for her, and it means I still end up sorting my own portions out. So occasionally people will come round for dinner or something, and I'll stick a sort of mountain in front of them, and they'll sort of go, "Is this are we sharing this?" It's like, "No, that one's all yours." It's like, "Oh my god." So yeah, that's required a bit of work.
Okay, right. Well, I'm going to have another quick vanilla yogurt, and we'll be back with hardware news in a sec. Right, so moving on to hardware news, and first up, Dolby Atmos. It's coming to more content on Sky Q, Steve.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they've been using it for some time now for live sports broadcasts, for football, obviously, Dolby Atmos. But now Sky Q and Sky Store are actually adding it to movies. So quite a few movies that you can buy to watch will include a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. Obviously, it's being delivered using Dolby Digital Plus, so it's not the full lossless Dolby True HD, but it still sounds really good. You get the overhead channels, you get the more immersive experience with the object-based audio. So that's good news, I think. I mean, it shows it's starting to expand its presence, Dolby Atmos, into other streaming areas. So, already Netflix has begun to use it on some stuff, and I think the reason that Sky is doing it partly is obviously to combat the competition they're receiving from people like Apple, who, with the Apple TV and with iTunes now delivering content in Dolby Vision and HDR and 4K. Obviously, Sky felt they needed to up their game a bit. So yeah, if you order certain movies now on Sky, things like Spider-Man 1 and 2, or 10 Cloverfield Lane, Transformers: The Last Night, Star Trek Beyond, Jack Reacher 2, Triple X, Ghost in the Shell, stuff like that, you'll get a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. So yeah, I think it's good news. Obviously, it's good news for Dolby, because they're seeing their sound format become, I think, pretty much a de facto format now. When it comes to streaming, Dolby always had that. We're always dominant anyway, and now Dolby Atmos is becoming the dominant immersive audio format for streaming. I don't know of anyone that's using anything but Dolby Atmos or Dolby Digital Plus. It's also pretty much the de facto format on Ultra HD Blu-ray now as well. There are occasionally DTSX soundtracks, but most stuff is Dolby Atmos. So yes, they seem to have won the third round of the audio wars, having lost Blu-ray to DTS. They seem to be dominant format now. And it's just another extension of that. So Sky now adding it. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes Apple to add it, because I know that they did say that it is in the pipeline. So they will be adding Dolby Atmos along with Dolby Vision to their streaming services and to iTunes. So, but yeah, I think it's good news. I think if you're an AV fan and you've got an Atmos system, you want as much content as you can find to play in it. So,
can you access this without a subscription, Steve?
How can you access Sky without a subscription at all?
Well, now, but I don't think they've modified those boxes, have they?
It is not. We're not talking about Now TV here, no. I mean, Now has had a recent upgrade to 1080p, about time. But as far as I'm aware, no, it's still, I think now it's just stereo, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
At the moment, yeah. So no, you're talking about Sky Q subscribers here and Sky Store, which is part of Sky Q.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, I'm a Sky subscriber. I haven't made the switch to a Q box yet. They do want an awful lot of money. Loyalty
Sky won a lot of money. Yeah.
I know. It's not news, but there is no loyalty, so or no reward for loyalty. So it's on my long list of things to do. So, meh.
Didn't you calculate how much you'd spent on Sky over the last few years? How much you spent on music streaming services?
I've written an article for the forums about the prospects for music streaming services, and yes, in the time that I have been subscribing to Spotify, I've given them a whisker over 1,100 quid, and in that same space of time, I think I've given Sky comfortably approaching £7,000, which is quite sobering. So
that's over how many years, Ed?
That's we're heading towards, no, it's 9 years. I mean, suffice to say, my Spotify subscription number is less than 10,000 for the UK. So I was relatively early on in their plans. So I've been doing it a long time. But yeah, this is a discussion for another time, presumably when the piece comes out. But it's possibly an illustration of why online music streaming services are not yet necessarily making any money. And also that Sky might have a business model which is a bit aggressive. But no, in terms, it's always, I mean, going back to the Atmos thing, that's always welcome. I mean, let's face it, as it stood when Atmos was announced, its whole viability lived or died on there just being everyday content for it. Because if there isn't, you've just got, I mean, in the case of upward firing speakers especially, you've got some extra ungainly looking units in your room, which you have to justify the existence of. So having more material make use of them is going to help in no small part their people accepting them into their rooms. I mean, I still don't have an Atmos set up in my lounge on a permanent basis for that reason, that there's just, in terms of my ability to access the content, there just isn't enough there for me to bother. So stuff like this, it's going to progressively help. I mean, obviously, the absolute kicker will be when you can, turn on your Saturday evening dross television, and at least some of it makes use of Atmos. But I dare say we're still some considerable time away from that.
Do you really want some of that to be over your head? I don't know.
I don't. I don't. We make a point, my wife and we don't watch any broadcast telly on a Saturday because it's the equivalent of just someone throwing up in your face. But that's a personal thing. I mean, it's we generally watch a particularly crap movie instead, so it's not like we're taking the high road here. But we can't ignore the fact that millions upon millions of people watch some of these Saturday evening programs. So if one of those made the jump, it would be a big impetus for people to start, making more use of those things. So
I think
be derogatory, but that's important.
I think adding to this is, if you're a Sky subscriber, great, you're going to get this with Sky Q. Sky have always been front runners when it comes to technology. They've always been pushing, because unlike the BBC, who are obviously paid for by license fee and can only really invest in technology once there is a user base out there, Sky completely the opposite. They're a privately owned company. They can put their money into new technology, which they tend to do. So they've always tended to be at the forefront of stuff like 3D, like 4K broadcasting, like HD broadcasting. So yeah, it's just a progression of that, and they have, at the moment, they have the financial clout to do that, whereas our other big broadcaster in the UK kind of has its hands tied. I mean, it does a lot of experiments and stuff with other broadcasters like NHK and so on, but there has to be a user base there for there to be a business case for them to spend license fee money. So it's
They've also
interesting.
backed themselves into a corner by continuously claiming that they don't have any money, and then when anyone does any digging, it's revealed that they'll have spent an unusually high sum on something that you wouldn't think.
Yeah, so £750,000 for a newsreader.
Yes, this is we generally end up going down a particularly angry rabbit hole whenever this happens. But the BBC is busy trying to clean house at the moment. It has other things to be cracking on with. I mean, the one thing that always puzzles me is obviously, ITV is a disparate organisation. It's lots of different production companies, and it sort of comes together as an umbrella. But it sort of surprises me that there's not more ambition on the part of some of those organisations to do something a bit cleverer. But meh. I guess it's, again, they've crunched the numbers, looked at what they need to do to get programmes out the door, and at the moment, technological advancement is not part of that.
I think the problem with commercial TV is that that advertising budget's dwindling and dwindling. It's the same as the national press. They're finding it harder and harder when it comes to advertising budgets, because people want to advertise in different ways, mainly online, mainly targeted advertising, that kind of thing. So I think in terms of commercial TV, I think they're really, really struggling, and the only way the BBC can do it is because it's paid for by people. People are taxed, basically.
Yes.
So it's. But would we want to get rid of the BBC? I'm sure we've had this conversation in the past.
We've had this conversation. Ultimately, it's that changes will eventually. Essentially, when we look at all the things that we're being obligated to pay for, and when you say, oh, such and such, why is there a funding gap in education, health? Delete as appropriate, and someone relatively charismatic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the right side of British politics. It could just as easily be on the other side of things. Someone relatively charismatic will go, well, it's the equivalent of the Brexit bus argument. If you want more money, you can do this or that, and it's a whole quality of life based argument, and someone will broach it in such a way, I think, in the next 10 years that it'll go down to a referenda.
Well, I think the streaming. I think the fact that more and more people are watching streaming services, the streaming services are definitely a threat these days,
yes,
to Sky and the BBC and other broadcasters. That we are going to see some change. I mean, saying that, some of the broadcasters have gotten behind it. So you've got BBC iPlayer and you've got Now TV from Sky, and I've got to say, Now TV I think is pretty good value for what you're
Yes.
getting on offer. So it's not like they're overpricing and that side of things. So it'd be interesting to see how it works. It'd be nice to see them add some of this technology to the streaming services. I think Now TV are the only one, Steve, I think we alluded to. They've only just now gone to 1080. And it's still stereo sound, whereas you look at Netflix, you can get 4K, you can get HDR, you can get Dolby Atmos. So
Dolby Atmos.
Dolby Vision. So there's still quite a bit of room there for them to move. And it's nice to see that the BBC are looking at the iPlayer and looking at doing that, UHD and HDR on that as well. So it's going to be an interesting time this year. I think streaming is at the stage now where it's about to explode. It's about to become the go-to place for people. I think this year's going to be a big year for that, and it'll be interesting to see what technology comes along with that.
Yes, I don't disagree with that, but I think explode is a very interesting choice of words there, because we've got two totally different situations for music and video. And I use the word video in the crudest possible sense. The video-based streaming services, they've got problems of their own. Fragmentation is going to be the big thing that they have to sort of work against over the next 12 to 24 months. But fundamentally, the business model is profitable. Music streaming services have cleaned up, and they've totally altered how we consume music as consumers, but they've done it, unfortunately, without necessarily working out how to make it wipe its own face. And sooner, I think within the next 12 months, that particular issue has to sort itself out. And I don't yet know how that's going to happen. That's me wandering around with a sandwich board saying the end of the world is nigh, or thereabouts. But I've got quite invested in that. I've written a whole piece on it, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But for video, I completely agree. Some of the most exciting stuff of 2018 is on demand and available at a very, very sensible subscription point.
I've got to say, I do not watch scheduled TV unless it's a big sporting event. And because I don't have Sky, it doesn't tend to be a big sporting event these days. Although I will be watching the Super Bowl on Sunday night. We will know by the time the podcast goes out who are the Super Bowl champions. Probably the Patriots again. They just win everything. But yeah, interesting. So let's move things on. Let's go projectors. We haven't talked about projectors for a while, Steve, because we've been at CES and all the rest of it, and we haven't had anything through for a while. But you got an interesting delivery this week.
Yeah. Epson sent me their new EHLS 100. This is a ultra short throw laser projector. So in other words, you basically put it, I think, within 30 centimeters of the wall. That's how close you put it. And it projects up onto the wall. You can have a screen, of course, for the best results, or you could use a white wall. And you can get the image up to 130 inches from 30 centimeters away from the wall. So that's interesting, because it obviously means you take up a lot less space when using it in a lounge, regardless of the size of the room. Also, it's laser, so it can be turned on and off instantly. It's got a much longer lifespan than a bulb, looking at sort of 30,000 hours rather than 3,000. And it's consistent. It won't really dim over the course of its life, maybe a little bit, but it's fairly consistent. Okay,
couple of questions. The first thing that comes to my head is image geometry. How does it sort that out without adding in artifacts?
It's designed to project, because so the laser beams off of a phosphor and then bounces back out at an angle. So it's designed to project an image onto the wall in the correct geometry. I mean, there are keystone adjustments you can make if you have to, but you shouldn't need to if you position it correctly to start with. So the bottom of the screen or the bottom of the image will be level with where it's projecting. So theoretically, it's capable of projecting an image without having to resort to any geometry adjustments like keystoning, although you can do that if necessary.
I wouldn't want to touch it, which is why I'm asking, because as soon as you touch keystone, you're in all sorts of artifacts and straight line problems and all the rest of it. So I take it the lens is designed to help with this, and with that in mind, is there any artifacts added by the lens, like aberrations at the edge and so on?
Not that I've seen so far, though I haven't done much testing with it yet, to be honest. But I should stress it's 1080p. So that is one downside of this particular projector. It's 1080p. It's not a 4K laser projector that we're starting to see hit the marketplace. It's LCD, so it's 3-chip LCD projector. But it's only $2,500. So I think where this is being pitched is as an alternative to buying a TV, basically.
So, sorry, $2,500?
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, we've seen these types of things from Sony. I mean, I think we saw one again from Sony at CES, and it was at double figures. It was like $12,000 or around that.
You mean the 760?
No, the short throw.
Oh, the short throw, yeah.
Laser projector. I think the first year we saw it was 25 grand, and I think this year it was around about 12 to 14 grand. This is 2.5 grand.
Yes, 2.5 grand.
Right.
So, like I stress, it is 1080p, but as we've just discussed at numerous times on the podcast, with a good quality Blu-ray at 1080p can look absolutely stunning. So, I mean, it's genuinely being targeted as an alternative to buying a television. So, because if you want a 130-inch TV screen, I mean, aside for the practicalities of getting something like that into a modern lounge, you could pay 85-inch, for example. That's pretty much as far as screen sizes go. I don't think there's any larger than that generally available. So 77 to 85 is probably as big as you're going to see available in this country.
It all comes down to panel size and what they can cut the glass at, and I think the limit. I think the limit at the minute is 88 inches. I think that is the limit for the machinery and so on at the minute. This is confusing me, Steve, and I'm sure you're going to go into depth with it when you review it and when you spend a bit more time with it. But we've seen these things from other companies. I mean, I mentioned Sony have one. Hisense have a range of them. Coming to, it's going to be business to business in the UK. I don't think the public are going to be able to buy any, but again, it's the same type of thing, a little bit higher resolution, but they all come with dedicated screens, which are basically high gain screens, so you can use it with ambient light and all the rest of it. I'm assuming that this doesn't come with any such screen.
No, it's just a projector.
What's it like brightness wise? Because ideally you want to use it in a living room, but using it in a living room, you usually got white walls, white ceiling, a little bit ambient light, and so on. I mean, is it going to stand up to that type of environment? Yeah,
it's very bright. It actually can stand up to ambient light in the room. So once again, it begins to make a sensible alternative to television, because obviously one of the big downsides to projectors traditionally has been that if you've got ambient light in the room, you wash out the image and it just doesn't look, it looks terrible, and you can't watch it unless you close the curtains and darken the room. And obviously you don't have to do that with a TV, so it becomes something you use for special events like a big sporting event or watching a movie. This is very bright, so you could quite literally use it in a room. I'm not suggesting have a window beaming light straight onto the screen or the wall, wherever you're using it. But if you're sensible, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. So again, it starts to make sense as, if you want a big screen image that you can watch like you would a television, this kind of thing is beginning to make sense in a way that it never did before. And like I say, the cost of buying an 85-inch TV is quite a bit. So cost-wise, there's no comparison at all. And like you say, you can invest more money, of course. You can then invest in a decent screen. Obviously, you're going to need some sort of sound system, be it a sound bar or go for a full 5.1 system, I think, if you're going to go for a big screen image. But certainly, I think from the general consumer perspective, when you're looking for alternatives to a big screen TV that are cost-effective, a £2,500 short throw laser projector starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's there's just something about it. Do Epson do they offer a screen solution to go with this?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Right. Okay, so in terms of image contrast, I know you haven't had a hell of a lot of time to play about with this, but in terms of contrast, black levels, all the rest of it, I'm assuming it's going to look pretty washed out compared to a normal projector.
To a degree, yeah. It's not. I mean, it's LCD, so that's never been its strong point to start with. Although they have got a lot better recently, has to be said. If you look at Epson's home cinema projector range that you reviewed recently, they've made some real strides there, I think, in terms of picture quality. But yeah, it's still capable of. I mean, in a darkened environment, it can deliver an image that's very watchable. But you're not going to get the same kind of contrast performance you'll get from a dedicated home cinema projector, but I don't think that's the point of it, really. And it's not really aimed at sort of the home cinema fan, because clearly they're going to go for a dedicated environment anyway.
Yeah,
it's aimed at the general public who you think, like, you know what, I quite fancy a big screen.
Is it more along the lines of sort of BenQ's approach, which is a bit of an all-rounder for gaming and 3D? Well, does it do 3D?
No.
It doesn't do 3D, but yeah, the big screen sports and gaming and so on, where image quality is not that important, rather than being able to see something and be able to get your friends round and that kind of thing. Is that what they're aiming it at?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Although I would say that I think the image quality is superior to a BenQ, obviously, because it is more expensive. I mean, at least twice the price. But yeah, it's aimed at that kind of marketplace, but also with the option that, if you wanted to use it all the time, you can without having to be worried about bulbs dimming and the kind of issues you get from a bulb-based projector. So yeah, I think it's designed to be an all-rounder and a genuine alternative to someone who, you think, well, shall I spend £5,000 on a big screen TV or £2,500 on even if you buy a screen to go with it and other things, it's still going to be less than £5,000, so a lot less. So I think, yeah, that's what they're aiming at people who are curious about the idea of big screen. Because the thing about, we've said this before, haven't we? The thing about projection is it can look really good when done correctly. The problem is most people's experiences of projection are in less than ideal environments, schools, boardrooms, pubs, and they don't appreciate that when it is done right, set up correctly in the right environment with a good screen, it can look really, really good. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting product from Epson, and I think we'll see more of this going forward. I think as laser becomes more and more prevalent as a light source for projectors and it becomes cheaper, then we'll see more of these products. And I think the sort of alternative, that sort of decision of do I go TV or big screen TV or projector, will become more difficult decision because
I don't think it's something that people are going to consider at the minute, because I don't think the quality is there at the minute, is it? I mean, you can't, if you've got a 75-inch TV, it's going to outperform anything short throw at the minute, unless you're looking at the likes of the Sony, which comes with a special screen, or the Hisense, which comes with the screens that are designed to, force the light back to the viewer. I think this kind of product, it's a bit of a stretch saying it can replace a TV in terms of image quality. It could certainly replace a TV in terms of size. I want to manage expectations here, Steve, a little bit.
I meant more in terms of convenience.
Yeah,
not so much image quality.
Okay.
Because obviously your TV will do things like HDR, which this doesn't, and 4K, of course, which this doesn't. So there are other aspects to television, and I think some of the projectors you've mentioned, the short throw projectors like the Sony and the Hisense, are 4K and do support HDR. So they are probably more comparable to current television models, but obviously are much more expensive.
Yeah, but it's a viable option. It's just it's expensive to do it right at the minute. It's nice to see Epson come in at the price point they're coming in at. Be interesting to read your final thoughts on things once you've had time. How are you actually testing this, Steve?
I've got to put it on top of the centre speaker, which is just conveniently at right height to have the projector at the bottom of the screen.
Okay. Yeah, because it's interesting because you've got a fixed screen set up in the cinema room. So are you going to try it in the living room with just a wall?
I will. I mean, I've got a whitish wall, so I can. I'm going to have to take down a decoration that's currently hanging on the wall, so it'll be it's not ideal, but it'll give you an idea of what a white wall would look like. I as a general rule, I would say always get a projector screen because you'll get the best results. But clearly, if you're looking for something that's going to be a cheap and relatively dirty solution, then you can use a white wall as long as it's nice and smooth and not undulating and that sort of stuff, because you're going to notice that on any kind of pan. But you can try it out, and it'll be interesting to see if it works.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting product. Interesting to see your results on that one. So to wrap up hardware news, it's the Bristol Sound Vision Show this month. Steve and Ed are going. So apart from Costa Coffees and sitting about chatting, what are you planning on doing, boys?
Well, we're going to do our standard policy of getting there relatively early and working from the top down.
That didn't really work last year, though, did it, Ed?
Well,
really early.
We had. Well, no, obviously traffic last year was just unbelievable, although it did mean that we got to gesticulate frantically at each other from our respective cars, which was childish but entertaining. But no, we generally work from the top down. It's fractionally less busy. There's not, in terms of posted announcements of stuff coming out at Bristol, it's a bit limited at the minute. But that said, some of the more interesting stuff, manufacturers, bless them, don't tend to tell people until it's there. Signs point to Riga having something new, and logically that would be a digital rather than an analog product, but we shall see what comes out in the wash. Neat, one of my favorite loudspeaker companies, has been pushing their IOTA program into an even larger speaker that looks even more like a pedal bin. Sorry, Neat. But I have every confidence it's going to sound absolutely mighty. And there's bound to be a couple of other things that keeps audio people like me very, very happy. I was looking at the comments on the forum, and we've got the Bristol show thread running at the moment. And yes, if you are a home cinema fan, I do feel for you. Sound and vision is a little bit of a misnomer these days. But equally, it's representative of, it's a show with a very sort of solid commercial underpinning. I'm afraid it's sort of representative of where the commercial interest is at the moment. And, you know, from my perspective, that's a great thing. I appreciate from your perspective, it's much less of a great thing. But that's where we are. And, you know, it would appear that it's doing all right as a stereo show. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, it's not doing as well as it used to, though, because if you think back a few years ago, the number of manufacturers that used to have their, like, big-name manufacturers, when they did sell screens, I think Pioneer were the best-selling manufacturer at the show for about 5 years in a row when the Kuro was around, and they did mega business back then. Yeah,
but equally they did so by there being sort of proper show specials, whereas now it's more a case of it's an opportunity for manufacturers to do a demo of their equipment as they see fit, and it often yields a couple of sales on the day, but more usually it sort of puts an idea in people's heads that that's what they might want to pursue, and they then go ahead and do that. So it's the mechanics of it are a little bit different, but it still seems to be doing all right. I have to be honest, it's still one of the shows I enjoy quite a lot. You know, there's an element of Groundhog Day. You know, you turn up to the same place, it's the same people there every year, same rooms, you all retreat to the bar at the end of it, complain about the same things. But weirdly I find that reassuring rather than depressing, but of course your mileage may vary on that, I guess.
I think it is obviously officially the Bristol Sound and Vision Show, but I suspect looking at what's going to be shown there, it's more sound and vision. And the only things I can see that might be of interest to me on the AV side, Arcam had a great demo last year. I don't know if they're going to be doing it then this year, but last year they had a full-on 7.2.4 Atmos setup with the AVR 850. They built their own subs, big screen projector. I think JVC there. It was, you know, it was a proper full-on AV demo, and that looked and sounded amazing. And hopefully I'll do something like that again this year, because that was one of the few highlights for me. The big highlight, basically, as far as I can tell from what I know about so far, is Optoma, who will be showing their new, I think for the first time anywhere, but certainly for the first time in the UK, the UHZ65 laser 4K projector is going to be there. So I'm really keen to get a look at that, see how that performs and what's being priced at, that kind of thing. So that's definitely of interest. Otherwise, though, I quite fancy having a look at the Technics in action, because I think that's going to be there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't know whether it's going to be the same config, monster 3-arm config as was in CS, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that should be worth a listen, if nothing else.
Serious question, Steve.
Yes.
If you weren't getting a press pass, would you actually pay to go to this show anymore?
Interestingly, I had that exact conversation with a friend of mine who's been to every Bristol show for about the last 10 years at least. He didn't go last year, but that was because he couldn't for other reasons. But I said, "You're going to go this year?" And he said, "I don't think I'll bother, because, you know, the glory days are gone." And he used to go to see, like, you know, he went about 5 or 6 years ago. He went along, and Alan Rose was there with a big Sim 2 demo. You know, and it was I think it was, we were talking about people seeing projection done properly. It was first time he'd seen full HD projection done really well. This is probably more like 10 years ago, actually. You know, it blew him away, and he ended up buying a projector, and it really got him into that whole thing. So, you know, the days of JVC having a demo room with their projector set up, those things have all gone now. So, yeah, he certainly felt that, you know, there was very little in the way of AV to see, and that from his perspective, there seemed little point going anymore, because it is really becoming a hi-fi show again. Which is
not a bad thing if you're into hi-fi. You know, that's great, fine. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant if that's your thing. But yeah, there's a real dearth of shows in the UK now, and thinking back to when I started doing this with AVForums and back in the the early days of AVForums, there was lots of shows. There was lots of, like I was saying, Pioneer were the best sellers at Bristol for years. You had Alan Roser's Sim projectors, you had the JVCs, you had other people getting involved, and it all seems to have gotten less and less. I mean, I remember going to the show that used to be in central London. I forget the name of it now, but you used to have there's about 6 or 7 plasma manufacturers there, and it was the first time I'd seen a Fujitsu plasma. Blew me away, the picture processing on that thing, and it just seems to be that the market's moved on. I don't think it's financially viable to do these things, and it was a bit of a conversation we had at CES as well. I mean, CES is starting to it's starting to get expensive for the little guys, and it's harder and harder for them to find exhibit space because they're being pushed out by other things. And I guess Bristol, to survive, it has to go back to its strengths, and its strengths has always been as a 2-channel show. That's where it started out, and that's where it'll always be.
Yes, but these things come in cycles, and it's interesting that people have obviously been crunching the numbers, and there's even more specialization going on with things like the CanJam headphone show and so on and so forth. So don't be too downcast. What goes around comes around. The chances are it'll come round in a cycle, and before too long I'll be there, being blinded by 20,000 nit presentations of various things, and there'll be a couple of turntable diehards on the 4th floor. So we'll see how it goes. But for the moment the balance is stereo, but there are reasons well beyond UK shows as to why this is the case, and there are structural issues with AV at the moment, which until there's a greater degree of stability, and everyone decides exactly what they want in terms of formats, standards, and the like, and there's a guarantee that they might be around for a bit. I don't know about you. I mean, we've got threads running on the forum at the moment about, are you going to buy a 2018 OLED or wait for something else, or so on and so forth. This is not conducive to people spending big money on home cinema equipment.
No, you're kind of. I know we're past sort of mid-decade, but you're at the point where there's a bit of transition going on. There's still quite a bit of transition going on. And I think it needs another year or two for it to really start to settle down a little bit.
No, I completely agree.
But yeah, it's one of these things. It's like you say, it goes in cycles. It'll come around once the next big technology comes along in terms of display or home cinema. It'll be at Bristol, and it'll be at other shows within the UK. But it's interesting that things have fragmented the way that they have, and that some shows that were really quite successful just suddenly disappear because it's not cheap for these manufacturers to do, and they have to pick and choose. And when if you think, just taking for example, completely off the top of my head, but if you think of somebody like Panasonic, a company like Panasonic, and then actually look at how many shows they do in a year, they actually have a full department that is just for the shows that they do, because you've got CES, you've got all the photography shows, because you forget that they're a big photography company, but they've got all the photography shows that happen all over the place, and then you've got
all the Ideal Homes,
Ideal Home, White Goods, and all that kind of thing, and we're just looking at the TV side of things and the audio side of things. And when you've got companies like that, they've got massive portfolios of products, they've got massive demands on what are becoming more and more limited budgets for doing these types of things. So it'll be interesting to see how things progress towards the end of this decade, and see where things start to go in terms of shows. Are we only going to be left with a couple of big shows like CES and IFA, and maybe a handful of other shows worldwide? Are they going to be the only things that are left? And then are manufacturers going to do their own little shopping mall type things in the countries where they want to push certain products? It seems to be heading that way at the minute.
Yeah, there's more than one way to break an egg, for sure. And the number of audio brands who have reported the success they've had with a dealer roadshow program, because quite a few of them have done that, they've been absolutely delighted with that. And that's another point of attack to existing show models. Rather than you paying an indeterminate sum of money to look at stuff when only a small amount of it is of interest to you, if your local dealer is hosting a likely free event where the brand that you're interested in is turning up and you get to talk to all the people that make that brand tick, you're going to do that. And that's been very, very successful for quite a few organisations. So that's another sort of area. And for AV, that has huge possibility because again, there's a level of control over the circumstances that they're doing it in. The right people turn up, the best equipment possible turns up, and people just turn up to see that. That's realistically got to make sense for them.
Maybe 10 years ago, Ed. But now, I'm in the northeast of England. I'm thinking 10 years ago there was 7 potential dealers where that could have happened. There's 1 now, and they're very much 2-channel.
Well, this is obviously a secondary issue, but again, this feeds back to dealers aren't, they are acutely aware of the bottom line, or if they're not, they're no longer in business. If you, as a manufacturer, tell a dealer to take X number of AV receiver models, which they may be sitting on a quantity of when you inevitably make an annual change on said AV receiver model, and the old model is worth buttons, the eventual lesson is that they'll stop buying them because it's just a suicidal business practice.
Yeah.
All of this has to be addressed or it's not going to change.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've
put the world to rights again.
As longer than our coverage of the actual show will be.
Oh, so very, very true. Right, coming up, movie news. Okay, so movie news, and it is movie news because, yet again, we haven't managed to get to the cinema this week. Although we're planning on going next week, I think.
Yeah, we're going to see.
I don't know.
Phantom Thread.
I just need to go and see something. I need to go to the cinema. I need my fix. I've missed it this month. After the spectacle that was Jumanji at the beginning of the month, I'm kind of craving a cinema visit. So I'll go and see something at least next week. But anyway, what can we go and see on Friday?
Just one big release this week, actually, which is the 1517 to Paris, which is the new film from Clint Eastwood about the terrorist attack on the 1517 to Paris, where a bunch of off-duty US soldiers foiled it. And I believe the actual soldiers are playing themselves in the film. So it's yet another of Clint Eastwood's string of films based on real-life events. I've got to say, his previous film, Selley, I thought was great. I didn't necessarily like the way that he changed the facts slightly and treated the NTSB, but the film itself was great as a disc and sound design wise. The whole landing on the water bit was done brilliantly. Tom Hanks was great, and I thought it was a really good movie. I'm not so interested in this, to be perfectly honest. I just feel like it's probably aimed more at a US crowd than it is a European crowd.
It's a bit more like what was the one he did about the soldier? The last one he did about
American Sniper.
It was too patriotic. There's nothing wrong about being patriotic, but it was too much.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows Clint Eastwood's very right wing with a libertarian view. So he's made quite a few of these sort of flag waving jingoistic movies of late. I'm just impressed the guy's still knocking them out. I mean, he's 80 odd, isn't he now?
Yeah,
so good on Clint still making movies. But yeah, I can't say I'm not going to go see it. I mean, this month, as far as I'm concerned, it's the following week where there are 2 big releases for me, which is Black Panther and The Shape of Water. I definitely want to go and see those. But I can't say the 1517 to Paris appeals to me any more than its title does. So
if I'm going to the cinema next week, what are you recommending I go and see?
Well, you should go and see the Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie with Daniel
the good one.
Yeah, the good one.
Disc releases this week.
Right, well, there's some big titles out. Well, one particularly big title out this week. We've got Blade Runner 2049. I've already seen this on Ultra HD Blu-ray. It was shot at 3.4K, and the effects was at 3.4K. It was finished with a 4K DI. It looks absolutely stunning. It looks stunning at the cinema. It looks equally as stunning on disc. The use of wide color gamut. It's got a very deliberate color design that's replicated on the disc. The detail is staggering.
The whole futuristic Las Vegas sequence, that's just astonishing. It blew me away at the cinema.
The best I've ever seen Las Vegas look.
It's Dirty Bomb clearly was the answer it needs. Yes, it looks stunning, absolutely stunning. and sounds equally as stunning. Major amounts of bass in this soundtrack, but loads of use of the overheads with the spinners and that kind of stuff, and the soundtracks. It's a demo disc through and through from beginning to end. It's a brilliant film. I enjoyed it more the second time round, partly I think because I was in the comfort of my own home cinema, because it is relatively long. It is slowly paced, but I think it's appropriate, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Second time round, I enjoyed it more, actually, funny enough. And as a disc, it is absolutely stonking. So, no question, it's already in what, second month of the year, only a month into the year, but this is one of the must-have discs.
Is it a fixed aspect ratio, Steve?
Yeah. It's 2.4 to 1. So yeah, and there's also some quite nice extras in there too about the making of it. I could have done with more. I think there's room for a whole documentary about the making of the film, to be honest, but what there is good. Plus there's also the little short film prologues that they released prior to the film online to promote it and to fill in some of the backstory between the original Blade Runner and this version, this new sequel. So that's really good too. So yeah, absolutely cracking disc. Get it, buy it immediately.
Do you think they'll do that type of thing when they launch The Last Jedi? Have all these prologue type stuff. This is what's happened.
To fill in some gaps. Yeah. They could do with that. They could do with something to fill in the gaps between Jedi, as in Return of the Jedi, and I don't mean books. I don't want to have to read books to find out what happened. Can you put it into a film, please? You're making enough of them. Anyway,
Armando Anici should do it as a spoof time trumpet style.
yeah.
Just, if we've jumped the shark, keep jumping.
Yeah,
that's the business model now. Is my view on this? Just up and up and up, further heights of insanity.
Yeah. So anyway, Blade Runner 2049, that's out. It is superb and a must-have disc in my opinion. Also out. It actually came out today, the day we're recording, but because it's Groundhog Day. But Groundhog Day is out on Ultra HD 4K Blu-ray. It's the competition prize as well, and that's a 4K restoration from the original camera negative.
It's on Netflix as well in 4K UHD.
Yeah. Well, Sony did a full restoration recently, so.
Yeah, I watched it on there and it looked really nice. So I can only presume that the disc looks even better. So
yeah, Sony have been doing some fantastic work with some of their older catalog titles in terms of restoring, the actual camera negatives and 4K scans. And this is another good example. Dolby Atmos soundtrack as well, and some great extras. And it's an absolute classic film, and certainly I'm going to get it because. It's one of my faves. We've also got Flatliners, the remake from the 1987 Brat Pack movie. Why bother? I don't know why they bothered remaking it. It wasn't a film that really warranted remaking in the first place. Kaz says the disc looks quite nice, but the film itself is a bit of a disappointment. And also we have Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Again, Kaz is more into this than me, but he said in his review that unfortunately it combines both the original Gotham by Gaslight graphic novel and its sequel to add more action to the thing and ruins the big reveal and twist in Gotham by Gaslight. So he said he was a bit disappointed in terms of the adaptation. But if you're an animated Batman fan, and also if you like these, I think they're called Elseworld stories. So basically the idea is this is Batman, but in London, in Victorian era, battling Jack the Ripper, then if that kind of thing appeals, that's also out. In terms of news, apparently we will be getting a Ultra HD Blu-ray this year. It is the 50th anniversary, so it makes sense. Warner's are prepping 2001: Space Odyssey for 4K Blu-ray. That's good news because that was shot on 65mm, so it should look absolutely incredible. Also, because it's its 25th anniversary, believe it or not, and also because Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom comes out in the summer, it looks like Universal are prepping the Jurassic Park movies for 4K Blu-ray release as well.
They always sell well. They'd be silly not to.
It will sell by bucket loads, yeah.
Yeah, always sell well. Groundhog Day, just thinking about that one. What was Bill Murray's best film?
Well, my favourite Bill Murray film is Groundhog Day.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ed?
You?
That's certainly in contention. For childhood nostalgia, I do quite like Scrooged.
I like Scrooge, but it hasn't aged well at all.
Well, no, but neither have I, and it's part of my childhood.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, Lost in Translation, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it'd be a tie between Groundhog Day and Lost in Translation. I think those are his two outstanding performances for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think he was robbed. He should have got the Oscar for Lost in Translation. It went to Sean Penn for shouting away in Mystic River, but Bill Murray's performance was subtle. You don't get Oscars for subtlety, unfortunately, but it was a beautiful performance in a lovely film. Yeah.
So talking about great acting, beautiful performances, and all the rest of it, Solo, a Star Wars story. The rumour is that the trailer is Sunday
Not
night.
rumour, it's been confirmed.
It's been confirmed,
going
is
to
it?
be Monday morning on Good Morning America.
Okay.
So afternoon our time. There might be a teaser, a little teaser in the Super Bowl, but the actual full trailer will be shown during Good Morning America on Monday afternoon our time. Okay,
so it has been confirmed now.
Yes.
So we'll get to see just how bad it's going to be.
Well, you've got to think what's going on. The film comes out in 3.5 months. We haven't seen a single still, a poster, a teaser, or any trailer yet. Now, some people might say, well, they were obviously leaving a clear gap to promote The Last Jedi, but you're thinking, well, surely a trailer before The Last Jedi made sense, didn't it, from a marketing perspective? Like, this is the new Star Wars film, but we got one coming out in May we might want to go and see. But no. Now, why that is, there's much debate. There's the argument they were waiting for a window opportunity after they'd finished the run of Last Jedi, which obviously is now in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl weekend was the last week. If it didn't do something this weekend, then there was it wasn't coming out in May. That's basically the bottom line. But now the argument is either it's an absolute train wreck and they don't know what to do in terms of trailer and how to sell the film because they're frightened it's going to get torn to pieces. Or, and this is probably also true, they're still filming it because Donald Glover, who plays young Lando Calrissian, was at the Grammys at the beginning of this week wearing his Lando moustache. So they're clearly still shooting. They fired the original directors, Chris Miller and Phil Miller and Chris Lord. They fired them. Chris Miller and Phil Lord. They fired them in July when they'd shot 90% of the film because apparently their take was too comedic. They also apparently had to get on-screen acting coach for the star. And given that no one was already interested in seeing a Han Solo film that didn't involve Harrison Ford playing Han Solo, this film lives or dies on the charisma and acting ability of the person playing Han Solo. And if he's not much cop, you've got a big problem. I mean, that's a fundamental problem.
The person playing Harrison Ford, you mean?
Yeah, that's a fundamental problem that can't be fixed. But apparently they brought in Ron Howard. He's a safe pair of hands, but not the most inspiring of choices. He's reshot 80% of the movie, apparently now. The budget's doubled. So I'm guessing it was already going to be 150, 200 million. So now we're looking at probably the most expensive film ever made. In terms of budget, for something no one wanted in the first place, and yeah, I mean, you got to think how bad is this? Is it? I mean, this could be the first proper, both critical and commercial disaster that Lucasfilm have ever had in the Star Wars universe, at least.
Yeah, that's a very.
I'm not counting Willow and Howard the Duck, but in the Star Wars universe. This has got turkey written on it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I never had any interest in it to start with, without Harrison Ford as Han Solo.
Anywhere near it.
I'm only going to go and see it at this point just to see how bad it is.
Yeah, you do realise that money counts the same as people.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, not really, because I've got a limitless card. So,
okay.
But yeah, the fact that we haven't even seen a still from the film. I just think, like, what is going on? I mean, it's coming out in May, guys. In May. I don't know. I think they've got a disaster on their hands.
I couldn't care less.
Well, I'd like to see them fall flat on their face, wouldn't you? I think the way they've been handling things so far hasn't been great, and they deserve to, get a face full of pie for flat. Think of
face full of cheesecake yogurt,
green pie in the face.
Hey, let's not waste cheesecake yogurt. It's nice.
Fine. Sorry.
Right. Okay. So I guess you'll be going to
We'll find out on Monday, won't we?
Yeah, we will. Well, people are listening to this and go and check it out. Yeah. So midnight showing. You going to that?
Oh, sod that! No, definitely not going to midnight. I'll go during the day or something, or in the evening, following evening.
So you're going to go?
I will. I will go and see it. I think, but as I say, mostly just out of curiosity at this point, because you're thinking like, well, I wonder how is it going to be terrible. We'll look at the trailer. I'll make my decision after the trailer. If it looks really bad, then I'm definitely going to go and see it. If it looks like it might just be okay, then I'm not that bothered. I want to see it. I want to go and see a really bad movie.
Just go and see The Last Jedi.
I don't want to see a competent meh film. And I very much doubt it's going to be brilliant. So, if it's going to be an absolute stinker, then yeah, that would be entertaining, if nothing else.
I mean, stranger things have happened. I mean, Ron Howard could really pull it out of the bag, and it could be an absolute stonker.
Ron Howard has made some very good films. I love Apollo 13, but he is a bit of a journeyman, isn't he? Really, I don't class him as being a particularly inspired director. The original directors they chose, they were inspired, and I quite fancied seeing their film. I don't know if I want to see Ron Howard's solo A Star Wars story. And it's also got is that the best title they could come up with?
Yeah.
It's in China, they've changed the title to Ranger Solo. Star Wars don't do very well in China. The Chinese have got no interest in Star Wars. And since they didn't want to have the Star Wars name even in the title, so they're going for Ranger Solo to try and make it out to be something completely different.
All right, so to wrap up on this week's podcast, it is beginning of the year. We're thinking about how we're going to use our unlimited cards, and we're looking at what films we should really go and see in 2018. Steve is writing a article about this, 25 most anticipated films. I thought I'll go and have a look at that and see what inspiration I can get, and it's all in Latin.
Yeah, it's all in Latin. So, do you not read Latin?
No.
I've heard that lorem ipsum is a really big deal for 2018.
So I've had a quick look through this list, and I've got to say it was a quick look to see which ones I really want to go and see. And I've got to say, there's nothing in there apart from Ready Player One that's really saying I must go to the cinema to see this. I mean, even Jurassic Park, I'm kind of like, meh, not really that bothered. So yeah, looking through this list, this is the list that you've put together, Steve. That's the only one for me that's really standing out. The rest are like, I'll go and see them, but they're not really a major draw, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, and this is my personal preference. I mean, I'm picking the 25 films I think most people will be interested in terms of, box office and general appeal. But they're dominated by comic book movies, and specifically dominated by Marvel, who have 3 of their own films out, plus there's a Fox film and a Sony film, Marvel film, coming out. So that's 5 films in the Marvel characters just this year alone, which is getting kind of crazy. But obviously, the big release this year will be Avengers: Infinity War. I mean, this is the end game. This is what this Marvel spent 10 years building up to this. They're going to bring all their characters together in this Avengers movie. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy are going to be in there. It's going to be able to deal with the Infinity Stones and with Thanos and all the things they've been sort of like seeding through the other films. That's the big end game. So that's obviously going to be the single biggest release this year. So I'm looking forward to that. As I mentioned, in terms of this month alone, I'm looking forward to Black Panther, which is another Marvel movie, and also Shape of Water. But also, and this is interesting, and this is a sign of the times, in February, one of the most interesting films, the film I'm most looking forward to seeing, is Mute, which is a new film from Duncan Jones, set in the same universe as his movie Moon, and that's on Netflix. So one of the most interesting films in February, the ones I'm looking forward to, isn't even at the cinema. It's on Netflix. And I quite like that. Like I said earlier about watching Bright over Christmas. I quite like that. I can watch Duncan Jones's new film in my home cinema when it starts streaming on, I think it's the 23rd of, the day of Bristol, actually, when we're at Bristol. I think that's quite exciting and shows you how things are beginning to change. But otherwise, you're right, Phil. I'm not so looking at the trailer for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Island blowing up. I don't really care. Doesn't look very good. Ready Player One, I'm definitely up for. The Rock, Rampage, giant ape, him and a giant ape. That could be fun. I mean, The Rock's usually entertaining, as we discovered with Jumanji, so might be up for a bit of that. Deadpool 2, I am looking forward to. Sorry, there's 6 Marvel movies. Deadpool is also a Marvel character. I'm looking forward to. These
are things you're looking forward to, but my point was there is no major pull to the cinema this year. There's no one outstanding movie that you must go and see above all others. Is there really? Unless you're a comic book fan.
Well,
unless you're a comic book fan, yeah.
No, there's not. It's not looking great for that. Can I just say that in terms of, I need to be clear on this. I have no expectation that this is going to be cinema for the ages, but I'm really, really hoping that I get to watch Super Troopers 2 in the cinema because I absolutely adore the original. It makes no pretense of being anything other than what it is, but I absolutely bloody love that film. And I saw the trailer for the second one, and it looks like it's going to be more of the same. And right now, in this crazy mixed-up world, that's all I want.
I suppose another big plus point for this year is that there isn't a Transformers movie.
No, but there is Pacific Rim 2, so it's not like you could do entirely without giant robots. I mean, I don't know, half of me, I find myself on the fence with that. For all of its many faults, I loved the utter beauty of the first one. But it appears that they've sort of lost that Guillermo del Toro aesthetic in this second one, so it looks like it will just be stupid without the beauty.
It looks absolutely goddamn awful when you look at the trailer.
It looks like a Blu-ray for me, rather than actually dragging myself to the cinema. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I am a sucker for a giant robot. But if they haven't put the care and attention in that they did with the original ones, I don't know if that's going to fly for me. Because obviously the quality of the engineering in the 300-foot tall armored fighting machine really tips the balance for me. So we'll see where we go from there.
I mean, it looks like there's going to be some pretty competent movies, and there'll be some interesting movie experiences to be had. It's just that there's at least one film every year that you must go and see. It's like a stick on. I am going to go and see that. But I mean, like you say, Steve, there's going to be some decent stuff there. The unlimited card is going to get used. I don't think I'm going to be out of cash this year. There's some really interesting stuff there. It's just all of the sameness, really.
It's depressing when you look at the list and think, right, okay, so there's 6 Marvel films, there's a DC film, there's numerous sequels. There's a reboot of Ocean's 11, Ocean's 8, but this time with women rather than men as the leads, all the leads. There's a remake of the Predator. Actually, I'm quite looking forward to that because that's Shane Black, who does tend to make quite fun movies. So quite looking forward to that. But yeah, it's all basically remakes, sequels, reboots, and some adaptations, things like Ready Player One, and very little of it appears to be original content or anything like that. So certainly as far as the big budget films go, yeah, it's more of the same. And unfortunately, that is the way that cinema's been going for a number of years now, isn't it? I think if we're talking about original, interesting stuff, I'm looking at Netflix and things like Mute and the stuff that they've got coming up this year on their on Netflix. Far more interesting titles, but with cinema quality production value. So that's exciting, I think.
Is it fair to say that Pixar's run has come to an end?
They've been treading water for a while now, haven't they? Their last great film was Inside Out, but since then it's been sequels. Was it Finding Dory, and Cars 3,
yeah. Incredibles
2, Toy Story 4 is next. They've Pixar they had a good run. Let's be honest, they had a great run. That for a long time they were knocking it out of the park, but now they seem to have lost all imagination and spark and originality, and they're just going back to the well. So
yeah, it is a shame that because you could always rely on a Pixar movie to be really quite interesting. So yeah, it's a strange list. Like I say, Steve's article, it'll be up this week as you're listening to the podcast. Maybe not on the Monday, but it will be up next week. Like I say, it's in Latin at the minute. He's got to go through and translate it into English. So look forward to that one. It's 25 most anticipated. And leave your thoughts. What do you think about the year ahead in cinema? Where do you think things have gone wrong? We keep saying this every year, really, don't we? But
let's put it this way, Phil. Last year, our most anticipated film was The Last Jedi. So how did that turn out for us?
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe Solo will be brilliant.
It's time to convert those unlimited cards into craft beer membership, guys.
Yeah, and on that hoppy ending, I got that right, didn't I? These hops, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's really slick.
This has come from someone who doesn't drink and has never drunk. Yeah, there you go. That's it for the podcast this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Chance of departure today, 100%.
And Dead Selley.
This is one time where television really fails to capture the true excitement of a large squirrel predicting the weather.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and videos, and of course, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.